Hey folks, welcome into the News 12 Now desk here. It is Monday, June 5th, just after 11 o'clock here in Augusta. So we have a pretty cool little thing right here for you. We're going to hear from a World War II veteran, 100 years old, Louis Graziano. He lives in Thomson. We've done a couple stories with him in the past when he turned 100. I think when he turned 99 too. People were sending him birthday cards from all over. So he is 100, and he was actually on the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. So it is the 79th anniversary of D-Day coming up here tomorrow. And so we caught up with him, and he actually saw the Germans surrender. So this is it's a really cool story that he's got. Our Sydney Hood talked to him. It's a little bit hard to understand just because he's a little bit older, but it is really good stuff. I'll put it, make sure the volume is plenty loud, and I'll put this on for a little bit. So this will run about a half hour or so. We do have a little bit more to talk about on the other side of it, but yeah, just wanted to play this, let you guys listen in. It's so cool to hear veterans, especially around Memorial Day when we heard from a few. We've got D-Day right now, and so it's always cool to hear them and hear their stories, and all these years later, even the little details they can remember 79 years later. So it is cool to hear Louis Graziano talk. So I'll stop talking. I will turn it over to the man of the hour here, Mr. Graziano, and I'll be back on the other side of this.
I guess I want to start with a little background on you and tell me about how you got into the service. I'll start with that one.
Well, I was drafted in this for the service, and I was ready to go in. I was drafted in Fort Niagara, New York, and from there I was sent to Camp Hood, Texas, for commando training to go overseas, and I trained there a few months, and then I was sent to Fort Stewart in Pennsylvania. And then from there I was sent to New Jersey to go overseas. And while I was in Jersey, before I got on the ship to go overseas, I went and had a record made for my father. And in that record, I told him everything I was going to do to Mussolini when I got there. And everything I said I was going to do came true just like I said. I don't know how I got it, but they hung him up by his feet, just like I said. And then I got on the ship at New Jersey to go overseas. And it was on the Queen Mary. There was 18,000 troops on that ship. And on the way there, the German submarines were chasing us, and the storm was so bad that we were supposed to go straight to England, but kind of the storm and the German submarines, we changed course and went to Scotland. And then from Scotland, we took a train to go to England, to Camp Weston.
And what year was that?
That was in 45, I guess.
Were you scared to go overseas?
Somewhere's in there, yeah. And then when I got to Camp Weston, I was put in charge of non-commissioned officers of the utilities, and they gave me 30 men to work with, and we had to build some barracks and stuff for the troops, which I did. And then I made Master Sergeant in 23 months, which usually takes 5-6 years to make that. And I got everything done that they wanted me to do. And I don't know what else.
And then so you're at, it's, remind me again, Master Sergeant.
Mhm.
Yeah. What was that role for you? Like what were your duties?
Duties I was in, had charge of the men with 30 men to put to work to build the barracks at camp for the troops. And also we took care of the, from there I was sent to Reims, France, where the Eisenhower's schoolhouse was. I was put in charge of that, and then I had to put special telephone lines in for Eisenhower's hideout. So my buddy and I went and done that. Stayed there 2 nights with him, and then we went back to camp.
And then June 6, 1944, tell me, start to finish that day, what you did that day.
The day after, well, I went to Eisenhower's. Well, we went back to camp then, and I was putting the men to work around the Reims, France. There, I was in charge of the whole city of Reims, and I had to take care of all the buildings that the American soldiers occupied. So I put the men to work on that.
You put them into work that day?
Mm-hmm.
And then, after that day, and then leading up to watching the Germans surrender, you know, what was it like watching that and the events leading up to that day?
Well, after that day, let's see. While I was there, I needed some supplies for the troops. And I went to this warehouse where they had supplies I needed, and the Frenchman wouldn't sell it to me. So I went back to camp and got 4 men and went back to there and told them I needed that stuff, and he still didn't want to sell it to me. So I got my pistol out and pointed at him. I told my men to load up all that stuff that I need, which they did. And I gave him the paper to take to the army to get his money for the stuff I took. I went back and told the major what I'd done. He says, "Oh, we're going to get in trouble." I said, "No, he's afraid I'm going to come back and get him." And we didn't have no trouble.
No trouble after that?
And we got the supplies I needed.
What were the supplies that you needed?
Supplies for around the camp. They needed some stuff to put in the barracks for the men.
And then talking about the Little Red Schoolhouse and being in that room, tell me, what do you remember from being in that room and just that historic day?
Well, that little red schoolhouse, I was in charge of the war room, Eisenhower's war room, where we had the maps of all what was going on. And I took care of everything that's supposed to be done around there.
And then so after that day, where did you go from there?
Well, later on, the captain come in one night and he says, "We got to go find General Patton. Half of his company got lost. We got to find them and take them to Bastogne." So we went out, we found them, and took them all the way to Bastogne. On the way there, I got frozen feet on the way to Bastogne. And once we got there, I turned him over to the general over there, and the captain and I went back to Reims. Then they had put me in the hospital for my frozen feet because the fluid was all coming out of them. And they black all the way half up the leg. And they're still black.
What is?
Hmm?
What's still black?
No, from being frozen, all the way up to here, they black. And they bother me sometimes, but I just go on.
You don't mind it? And so, your time overseas, talk to me a little bit about, I want to know, you met your wife over in France. How did y'all come back to the U.S.?
Well, my buddy said, let's go to the ball game, watch the ladies play ball. And he took his girlfriend with him, and we went to the ball game. And one pitching the ball was Bobby. And I asked his girlfriend, who was that? She says, that's Bobby, she's my best friend. I said, that's okay. So the next day I went to the orderly room where she worked and made a date with her. So when I went to pick her up that night for the date, they said she's already going with somebody. So I went back to camp later on, and some of her girlfriends told her she'd never get another date with me. She said, oh yes, I will. So later, a couple of weeks later, I went back, made a date, and she was there ever since.
What year was that?
Pardon?
What year was that?
What was I?
What year was that? What year did that take place?
I guess in 45 or something I was in there.
And so, made your way over to the U.S. Tell me, how did you make your way to Georgia, and specifically Thomson, Georgia, of all places?
Well, when I got back to the States, I was back in the hairstyling business, and they was looking for a stylist in Belks in Augusta. So I went down there to see about the job, and they hired me, and I took the job. Working there at Belks, and there was a lot of customers came from Thomson to get their hair done at Belks in Augusta. And they talked me into coming into Thomson and open up a shop. So I said, okay, and they said that they'd find a place. So one of them called me and said they found a place for me to rent to open up a shop. I said, okay, I'll come and look and see. And I did, and rented a place and opened up the shop. I was busy ever since there.
Been here ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And, Thompson, what do you teach the town about, your time in service, and, as time goes on, people tend to forget about the past. What do you teach people about your time in service, World War II, and the importance of remembering?
I don't know,
Or I guess I should say, but go ahead.
I just would tell them I got in and done what I had to do, and wasn't worried about anything. They said, was you afraid? I said, no. I just did what I had to do. And I had to climb that cliff, which was 100 feet high, on a rope ladder. And the Germans shooting down at me. And we continued fighting them all the way. And we fought them all the way to St. Louis. And then from St. Louis, fought our way to Reims, and that's how I got to Reims, France. And I stayed in Reims the rest of the time.
tell younger generations, like people that are, you know, in grade school, elementary school, like how do you teach them the importance of this history? You know, you live that history, so how do you pass that along to generations so that we continue to remember it?
Well, I don't know. I just tell them they need to go to service if they intend to and do what they had to do. And it was a good thing for them.
And then you have a lot of people that are very interested in your story. What is your favorite thing about sharing your story with folks?
Well, I think, I don't know. I think they ought to read, put the book out that they could read, and that would tell them what to do.
Did you ever think that, you know, you saved your pictures in a scrapbook almost? Did you ever think that that would turn into a book that would be
Well,
such of interest?
Well, I made little notes and stuck them in a box, and then when I was ready to write the book, I got the notes out and wrote about what the notes said. Then we put the book together from those notes. My daughter Maura put it together.
And then, kind of, how did you, from the notes and the pictures, kind of use that to tell your story, like kind of relive all that?
Well, the note would tell me what what I was doing at that time.
So you have the notes correspond with the pictures?
Right.
Do you have a favorite picture from this board or a favorite note?
Well, there's a picture of the schoolhouse down there. See it over there. And down there is a picture of the Germans when they signed the surrender. I was in the room. I set the table up for them and told them where they were going to sit. And I had the Germans there, Frenchmen, British, Russians. I had them all. The Germans wouldn't sign till the rest of them signed it all first. But then they signed it, then I took them Germans up to Eisenhower's room. He didn't want to be in the room in case they decided not to sign. So that's why he stayed up the hall, 2 rooms. So he says, if they sign, you bring them up. If they don't sign, don't bring them up. And he wouldn't shake hands with him.
Eisenhower?
No. Mm-mm. So they clapped their heels together, and then he dismissed them.
And then, you know, it's been almost 8 decades since that picture was taken. What do you hope, or what should people remember about just the significance of that time, the Germans surrendering?
Picture where the Germans surrendered?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I knew once they signed it, I was happy because I was ready. I could go home then. The war would be over. That's what I remember.
Did you ever think you'd live long enough to be the last surviving person in that room?
No, I never thought of that. I just took it as it came, I guess.
Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people, I mean, I'm speaking personally here, are fascinated with your story, but, you know, do you, I don't know where I was going there, but, what do people say to you whenever they want to hear your story? Because, I mean, you lived history, you saw it, and you're able to tell it, kind of. What are you able to teach people? What do you hear from folks?
I don't know, just Do what you're supposed to do, I guess.
Do what you have to do.
Right. And there was a cliff, a picture over there with a cliff. See it? Way over in this side. I was climbing the cliff up there.
That's the 100-foot cliff, you said? How tall was that cliff, did you say?
Yeah, the cliff right there. See the men going up the cliff?
Yes.
That cliff was 100 feet high. And the Germans shooting down at us. And I was climbing up that cliff, and I had men with me that had two of my men that didn't have no guns. I says, go down there and get your gun off of the dead soldiers and follow me up the cliff, which they did. And that's when we got all the way up there, fought our way to St. Louis, then to Rings.
This is also going off topic here a little bit, but you just celebrated your big 100-year birthday. Do you feel 100? I just had to ask that.
No, I don't know. I don't feel no different.
Do you feel the same as you did in those pictures right there?
Yeah. I don't know. I just take it as it comes.
How big of an honor it is to, be filled in a room. I mean, you're getting honored by presidents.
Yeah.
How big of an honor is that for you?
I don't know. With a lot of them.
Is there anything else you want to add that I didn't ask? Any stories that you remember from your time?
That one soldier there, the last one over here, the band of brothers, one.
What about him? That was
Yeah,
one of the
right
Band of
there.
Brothers.
He's the last one living from the band of brothers. He and I was at the convention, and we was buddies at the speakers at the convention.
You got anything else you want to add?
I don't know.
Did you, with the anniversary of D-Day on Tuesday, did you ever think you'd live this long to see the 79th anniversary of it?
No,
Do you still remember it plain as day, all these years later?
I never thought about that. My buddy, his wife, not his wife, but his girlfriend, was a mess sergeant in the mess hall. So one night we all went out to eat, and now that we back to camp, we decided we wanted to go in the mess hall and cook us a steak. And so we went in, his girlfriend and my girlfriend, and cook us a steak, and the colonel comes, "What you all doing here?" I says, "Colonel, how you like your steak?" So that took care of that situation, so he didn't get after us, so he enjoyed his steak.
Just, how do you like your steak?
Right.
What'd he say?
So that's nothing. He didn't get after us. He enjoyed it. So I figured that was a good way to get out of it. And it worked.
How do you like your steak? So, I want to hear, what is this boxing story?
The boxing story. Well, my men, I'd give them a pass where they can stay out overnight, but they had to be in for reveille. And this one guy, he kept coming in late all the time. So I told him to give me the pass back. he says, take off your shirt. They won't fight you with your shirt, with your rank, you know. And of course, all the men in the office all knew I was a hairstylist. And I started taking my shirt. You're not taking your shirt off. You're going out there. Because they knew I was a hairstylist and they didn't know I could do boxing. Because I lived next door to a place where they did boxing and wrestling. And I'd go in and box with them when I was growing up. So I took the shirt off, went out, and I beat the hell out of it. But they thought I was going to get he was going to get the best of me, but he didn't. So I didn't have no more trouble with him.
So, you ever come into conflict with someone, bring up steaks, bring up boxing, solves all the problems, right?
Yeah.
And then, any more stories that you miss telling me that I should know? What?
I don't know that.
The barber story.
Barber. Oh, the barber was sick, and the colonel comes up and he says, you gotta go in the barber shop, take over the barber shop. I said, how do you know I can cut hair? He says, I checked your records and I found you was a hairstylist. I said, okay. So I went in and cut the hair for 2 weeks till the barber got well, and then went back out with my men.
But who was the first person that you cut hair?
Mm.
Who was the first person that sat in the chair?
Oh, the worst was, well, General was the first one to come in to get a haircut. So I cut it.
Eisenhower?
No, it wasn't Eisenhower, it was another general. And so I did all right with him. I had no trouble.
First person of all people was the general.
Did you tell her about the amphitheater?
Let's see, I built the amphitheater, and as I was building that, I come across a wall, concrete wall blocks, and the men said, there's a black wall here. I said, make a little hole in there, let's see what's in the other side. So they peeked, they said, it's a wine cellar. I said, well, make a bigger hole and get the champagne that's in there, got the most dust, because that'd be the best. So they did, and we had a good time with it. Next thing you know, my general comes up, want to know what happened. So he made us pay for what we took, because the Frenchman had reported it to the general. But we didn't care, we had a good time with it.
Did you tell her how you became in charge of all the buildings and rooms?
I was in charge.
How you became in charge of all the buildings and rooms?
Well, the general put me in charge of.
But what did you do to become in charge of it?
Oh, let's see. I was working under a major, and the major and the captain, or the general wanted the major to build a mess hall. So he came out there one day and he said, it's been 3 weeks, he told the major, we hadn't done nothing. General looked at me, he says, can you do it? I said, yes, sir. I said, can we step aside here and talk? And she says, Major, you stay there. So I told him that I wanted him to let me use the German prisoners to help me get the building up. He says, okay, you got it. So General left, and the major says, how do you think you're going to do it? I didn't tell him how I was going to do it. So next thing you know, the major got transferred out, and I got charge of the whole city of Reams Ranch. And I got the building up for the general.
Just kind of fell into place.
I had no problem getting it up.
No problem at all.
No. Things just came to me I could do.
Any more stories about you guys?
You understand he has an 8th grade education.
I did not know that.
No.
What?
I told her you only have an 8th grade education.
Right.
He dropped out during, to help his family.
And then, what year did you get drafted?
It went in 1943.
43, I think. Yeah.
Wow. Anything else that we missed?
Did you tell her you were major of Tent City?
Yeah, we had to put some tents up because we didn't have enough barracks. So I got the tents up, and they called me the major of Tent City.
Mayor of Tent City?
Tent City.
Tent City.
This was in England.
So,
I just would do anything that had to be done. I had no problem with it.
no problem? You just did what you had to do?
I would just work it out. Yeah.
You didn't think much about it, you got assigned to do something, something fell in
Right.
place, and you just did it? You're just like, no biggie. Alright. Any more stories that you want to share from your time?
I don't know.
The phone lines? The phone lines? Did you tell her about the phone lines?
Yeah, I told her about telephone line.
That's all I don't have any more questions. If you have any more stories that you got.
The dugout? Did you tell her about the dugout?
Dugout.
The dugout. You build in the dugout? You're going to have to edit me out of all this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I told
You
her
told her about the dugout?
about the wall there.
The dugout. You build in the dugout? The building where you proposed to Mama.
Oh. Well,
Be still.
that's when there was an old barn there, and I took that barn apart and made a clubhouse for the troops. And built a bar and all in there. And that's where I proposed.
In that barn house?
And then at the bar at the building I built, at the clubhouse.
So you built the building. Who'd you build the building for originally? Remind me? Who was it built for?
I built the building first,
First.
and then with the bar and all, and that's where I proposed at the bar and the clubhouse.
And then, rest is history. Did she say yes immediately?
Uh,
Did you get an easy yes to the question when you asked your wife if she wanted to marry you?
yeah, yes, she did.
Well,
After she stood him up.
Well, I told her that.
Again, just so cool to hear his stories and again, all those little details that he still has years down the line, almost 80 years now with D-Day, 79th anniversary coming up tomorrow. So we appreciate him giving us some time and obviously wishing him all the best. He's a pretty regular on the newscast between his couple birthdays that we've covered the last few years, as well now as this D-Day anniversary that Sydney did last night. So let's switch gears a little bit here. There was a pretty big town hall last night on CNN. If you didn't catch that, Nikki Haley former South Carolina governor, presidential candidate, was doing a town hall. Remember, they had one with Donald Trump a couple weeks ago now. They've got one with Mike Pence coming up as he's expected to throw his hat into the presidential ring. But right now, they were focusing on Nikki Haley. So we'll play a little story, a little recap from that town hall from last night.
I'm in this to win it.
Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley seeking to elevate her candidacy for president by calling for consensus on polarizing issues like abortion.
I think we can all agree on banning late-term abortions. I think we can all agree on encouraging adoptions and making sure those foster kids feel more love, not less.
At a CNN town hall in Iowa, she broke with two Republican frontrunners on key foreign policy issues like Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
You can't be trustful of a regime that goes in and tries to take away people's freedoms. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see this through. We have to finish it.
She called out Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' legal battle with Disney as hypocritical.
He went and basically gave the highest corporate subsidies in Florida history to Disney. But because they went and criticized him, now he's going to spend taxpayer dollars on a lawsuit.
Haley also said former President Donald Trump and DeSantis have not been straight with voters about the fiscal solvency of Social Security and other programs.
I think it's important to be honest with the American people. We are in this situation. Don't lie to them and say, oh, we don't have to deal with entitlement reform. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. It's the reality. I'm always going to tell the truth. Is it going to hurt? Yes.
At 51, Haley has said she would bring a generational change to the White House. Asked whether she believes she would experience sexism as a female candidate, she said this.
So none of my jobs have ever had a line going to the women's bathroom, ever.
But she drew applause when she said it was time to break the presidential glass ceiling.
I'm a big fan of women. We balance, we prioritize, we know how to get things done. I mean, honestly, we've let guys do it for a while. It might be time for a woman to get it done.
The town hall put an exclamation point on a busy weekend of campaigning in the state that opens the Republican contest early next year.
Well, hello, Iowa!
With DeSantis joining some of his Republican rivals as they shook hands and introduced themselves to party activists.
There is no substitute for victory, and we need to dispense with the culture of losing that has beset the Republican Party in recent years.
Trump was the only major candidate who declined an invitation to Senator Joni Ernst's annual Roast and Ride, where motorcycles and barbecue come with the side of politics. Yet the former president looms large over the presidential race and sits at the center of the choices facing Republicans as the campaign intensifies.
What's the balance in your party, do you think, of people who want to turn the page and move forward versus turn back to Donald Trump?
I think there are a lot of folks that want to move forward. I know that President Trump has a great base here. It is strong. But at the same time, people don't want to hear about what has happened in the past because we've had 2 years of a Biden administration that is just destroying our nation.
Okay, there you go. A little recap there from the Nikki Haley town hall from last night. I was just taking a look over here at a couple things. One, wanted to just make sure I had the grasp of all the candidates in the presidential race. On the Republican side right now, I think we have 7 in there. Yeah, so Donald Trump, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis just announced, Tim Scott just announced, South Carolina Senator not too long ago, I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And then on the Democrat side, most notably, President Joe Biden expected to win the Democratic nomination again. Mike Pence and Chris Christie are 2 names that have been thrown around who are expected to join the race at some point this week. Mike Pence actually has a town hall coming up. Let me double check when that is. That is going to be Wednesday. So Mike Pence has a town hall with CNN coming up on Wednesday. So we'll get a better idea then whether he's officially in or if maybe he'll announce there or whatever. But he's expected to throw his hat in the ring, as is former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. So that will bring us up to 9 Republicans as it stands. And then with plenty of time until the election. There's a lot of time for more people to get in there. So 3 Democrats right now: Joe Biden, Marianne Williamson, I think. Let me double check. Robert Kennedy Jr. That's right. JFK's nephew. That's right. So that's what we're looking at on the presidential side right now. I was looking at some poll numbers too here. Let me pull this up for you, give you a good idea. This is just on the South Carolina side, because they've moved up now into being the first state on the Democratic side. No, it's not the Republican side, but whatever. And I thought this was a little interesting. Donald Trump polling about 20 points higher than Ron DeSantis. That number was more before DeSantis officially ran. If we check like other states, let's just check overall. Up 30 points, 31 points. So looks like the gap is getting a little bit closer, but still pretty wide. A couple weeks ago, it was, let's see, 56 minus, about 37 points. And now it's about 21. So did I do that math right? 56 minus 19. Yeah, about 37 points, and now it's about 31 points. Oh boy, we're news people, not math people. Now it's about 31 points. So DeSantis closing the gap a little bit, but Donald Trump still has a huge advantage overall. And that's not even, that's just overall. So they take all these polls, they put them all together, the averages. So, you'll find some in here where, DeSantis +2 or Trump +2, some well closer ones, or, Trump +50 or 58, So there's more extremes. But this seems to be the general average, is that Donald Trump's leading by about 31 points over Ron DeSantis. So we'll see how things go as the next 6, 12, 18 months shake out. But that's kind of where we're at right now. But okay, folks, we got about 13 minutes or so until midday. If you want to swing on over to the TV side of things, Zayna and Tim have all the latest for you over there. That is it for me this morning, but be back tomorrow with a little bit of Tuesday's top headlines. Almost forgot what day it was, but yeah. As always, be sure to download the WRDW streaming app if you don't have it already. Roku, Fire, Apple TV, whatever your streaming device is that you have. Go ahead and download the WRDW app on there. It's free to download, and it gives you everything that we do, including live newscasts, I-Team investigations, first alert forecasts, all that stuff is going to be on the streaming app. Also, I'll show you again real quick how to subscribe to the YouTube channel. So you go to YouTube, and you go to WRDW News 12, and you go to the subscribe right there. And then look at that. We're live right now. Once this ad ends, it'll show you that we're live. Sorry, I think I just gave you a little dizziness right there. Whatever, you get the idea. Yeah, YouTube channel, streaming app. That'll get you up to date with everything we got going on in the CSRA and beyond. Now you got 12 minutes till midday. So head on over to the TV side. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a good one.